Aqui, na Klabin, a gente dá muito valor à embalagem. Mas quando falamos de pessoas, o que vem de dentro é muito mais importante do que o que se vê por fora. Há alguns anos, a Klabin passou a dar mais foco e atuar com mais intensidade nos temas relacionados à diversidade. As ações, antes pontuais, tomaram forma, ganharam tamanho e geraram resultados. Hoje, a Klabin conta com um modelo de atuação que direciona as ações voltadas para a diversidade na empresa. Definimos onde queremos chegar e, agora, trabalhamos ações que nos levam para mais perto desse objetivo de sermos uma empresa cada dia mais diversa e inclusiva. Para chegar lá, trabalhamos em 4 frentes. Área corporativa, que faz a gestão do tema, desenvolvendo ações e programas alinhados à estratégia da companhia. Comissão de gente, que discute e recomenda ações para aprovação em diretoria. Comitê de Diversidade, que constrói e apoia ações locais com representantes das unidades. E os grupos de afinidade, formados por colaboradores voluntários que se dedicam aos temas de diversidade como raça e etnia, gênero, diversidade geracional e LGBTI+. Cada grupo é responsável por discutir, construir e apoiar ações que fortaleçam seu tema e propósito específico. E é sobre eles que você vai conhecer um pouco mais agora.
Hello, everyone. My name is Miguel. I am part of Klabin's legal team. I'm also the leader of the Black group, and I have Luciana here with me.
Hi guys, I'm Luciana Valenti. I am from the development of new paper products, and I'm here to tell with Miguel a little bit about the Black Diversity Group, which is one of the diversity groups we have at Klabin. As you probably have seen, there are lots of research talking about how important it is for us to have collaborators from different groups in the company to contribute for best results. And it's not only people from different universities, people from different culture, race, ethnic groups. This will lead to different thinkings, and so we will have a better work environment and a better result. This is not a simple journey. Miguel will bring more information to you about how this works. But we watched a TED talk by Joseph Campbell that talks about the 5 steps for us to be defenders of the third parties. And we based ourselves on that to bring some important and relevant topics for this journey of inclusion to have more black people in different environments. Also, because if we work, we see many white people in the corporations, and we need to help and contribute so that we have more representativeness and so that these people that are the majority of our population, they become part of these companies with an active role. And so the first topic that I will approach to you is blocking the small motivations. That's number one. The fight for equity has to do with a sense of purpose. It's a long process. It can last a lifetime. That's why discussion is so important. And it's important to create policies and new public laws so that these differences are minimized within society. We must discuss, we must debate, we must listen to people's point of view, and these point of views have to be discussed so that we have racial democracy. And when we see the features of most of the black people, we see that they are less favored. We see that they have lower access to education, and this has to do with structural racism that also affected the indigenous population, not only the black population. So these laws must guarantee equity among people. We know that racism is still shaping our society. Why? How do we realize that? It's simple. If we see the Brazilian Congress, or over 50% of our population is black, but just 6% of the lawmakers are black. And when we see violence statistics, there are black people that are suffering. And every 23 minutes in Brazil, a black young person is killed. So we need to have this discussion in mind. This is a complex topic. It is not simple, but when we say that it's structural, we don't say that this cannot be changed. It's quite the opposite. We must bring better equity among people. And so, Miguel will talk a little bit about topic number two.
That's right, Luciana. That was a good introduction. I think it provides the necessary context, and this is our purpose here. Just to make it clear, when we talk about racism in Brazil, we are talking about the ethical and racial restrictions that are imposed in a discriminatory way. And this practice, at the end of the day, harms, diminishes, and really causes negative effects to individuals, those that are different than what we understand as normal or according to our you know, social, economic, and educational construct. It has led us to believe that that was the most proper way of dealing with human beings. And in Brazil, this issue becomes even more self evident in what we call structural racism. But after all, what is structural racism and how did it start? Well, it is structural because it's part of every structure in our society, and it is a historical problem in our country. For us to tackle and understand structural racism, we have to understand the broader context and the historical context. That's why we have to go back a little bit and talk about what happened in our country as of 1520, 1530, when they began the colonization process. And that's when our process of slavery started as well. First of all, it happened in the indigenous community, but they realized that they couldn't really take the heavy labor. So it fell upon the African blacks to be the slaves. That practice was already very disseminated in Europe. Black people were negotiated and traded as goods. They were stolen for African tribes. That was no novelty in the African continent. And they decided to export this mode to Brazil. And with that, some concepts were created, such as social Darwinism, to make sure that black people would disappear from the country. They did studies, they did scientific trials that were completely wrong, and they imported this idea from Europe to Brazil. The idea was that Caucasians or white people were considered to be the superior race, right? They established that through physiological criteria that made no sense, but the intention was to always subjugate black people, to put them at an inferior position. So there was a lot of race mixing, and they mixed the races to make sure that the black descendants had, lighter skin complexion, and to eradicate the black population with time. These concepts fell apart and collapsed through time, but they left roots. They left a mark in terms of exclusion, and that reaches our country to this day. We only we only put racism as a crime in our legislation in 1961. So it's been a long time, If you consider the country and when we were created throughout those 520 years, at least 71% of this period was dedicated to the abolition of slavery. Almost 400 years of slavery, if you consider it in early 1520. But the punishment is only 132 years, and public policies for the black population only have 30 some years. So we have to think about what are these policies and why were they created. They were created because there is a social disbalance that is rooted in this construct that has happened through those 132 years that prevented black people from being included in the social realm. So there is a social equality legislation in 2010. We now have policies to include African knowledge in the school program. As of 2003, we now have university quotas because of the deficit of education in the black population that has, expanded through the years. All of that has a reason. That's due to our historical context. It's due to the lack of access, the lack of representation, as Luciana already said, that has prevented the black population from being a part of society full fledged and to be in a position to participate, develop, and have our place in an equitable way alongside all the people that comprise our country. So that's a very important historical context, and that's what we try to bring to you in a very summarized way so we can understand our current scenario and think about the next few steps.
And then, bringing all of that, it is really important that we become aware of all of that, that we become aware that Brazil is the country with the largest black population outside the African continent. And if we stop and think and we start to identify, we will see that the white population has lots of privilege. When you go to a restaurant, it's common for you to be served by black people. When you see in the communities, most of these slums and communities are formed by black people. So we must be careful, must be aware, and we must start to identify these small situations so that we can contribute even further. And it's essential for us to stop using terms that had the origin in this discrimination, such as master bedroom and other words we use in Portuguese every day that we have to be careful with them because these are words that, in a way, are associated to this kind of prejudice. So we must not only talk about racial issues with black people. We can talk to white people. Black people, they are not the only one that understand this process. They have been impacted by it. They have suffered by it. But today we have doctors, lawyers, writers, intellectuals that are black people and they want to talk about other topics from contemporary life. They don't need to talk only about the structural racism or the historical context. They must be allowed to talk about all topics and they must be included. So it's really important to bring this inclusion, to be aware, and that is what we have been trying to do in our group. And that is why when we talk about the black group, especially among our group, we think about the future, and that's the closing of our conversation. Do we need to defend black people? I don't know, but our goal here is to show how we are doing it because we see that these are necessary and essential changes, and small changes can make a lot of sense to the life of many people that feel inferior, that feel looked down on because they have gone through the historical context. Their origin comes from that. They were marginalized for many years, but we can do it differently. We can bring value and we can show equity to these people, and that's the goal of the black group here. At clubbing, we have talks to make people aware, to make collaborators aware of this unconscious bias, because we use the terms that I mentioned before without noticing. It seems natural. The big brother joke seems natural to many people, but it's not. It hurts people, it affects the people that have gone through this marginalization. So we must show people that they have to look at different angles. We are always looking the same way. We must open our mind and we also try to bring scholars, professors, intellectuals, people that study these topics to bring more information to our collaborators. And in the last year, we started a social trainee program that it is very good for black people because this is the population that has a lower income, and that is just the beginning. We've been working with new goals and new attitudes that we can take to bring equity and to bring representativeness, to increase the representativeness inside clubbing. And every day we're discussing new possibilities among the group and collaborators because we must bring this inclusion. And that's why I will close this conversation with Miguel with a video from other collaborators that are part of the Black group, and would like to thank you for your attention. And we are here to discuss more activities that can contribute for greater representativeness of the Black group. See you soon, guys.
That's right, everyone. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you for your interest. And we are together in this journey to make a difference. And we need everyone's support to make it happen. The cause of black people is not only of black people, it's for all white people, indigenous people, and every race, so we can build a better country.
I am Nayara, and the Black group means representativeness.
I am Joel, and the black group means belonging.
I am Nayani, and the Black group represents to me integration.
I am Juvenal, and the black group means engagement. I am Raul, and the group black means awareness.
I am Bruna, and for me, the Black group represents inclusion. I'm Carol, and for me, the Black group represents identity.
My name is Rogerio, and the black group, to me, it means transformation.
Thank you, Black group.